Okay, so here is the first one. Okay, would you like me to play the video?
Yes, please.
The fig isn't a fruit,
Hopefully there's an ad.
it's a flower, and it blooms with flavor, honeyed, earthy, and rich. But while a fig tree is one of the hardiest in the world, its flower is one of the most fragile. Here, gloriously, and then gone. So honor every fleeting moment of its perfectly ripe, frustratingly short-lived bouquet while you can. Preserve every sweet second of freshness and flavor with Sub-Zero. Live deliciously. The fig isn't a fruit.
Oh, and it's playing.
Okay. That's annoying. I'm gonna reload the page and see.
You might have to watch an ad again, and that's okay.
The day has dawned, and 2 elephants emerged from the forest to feed at the local landfill. It is a sorry sight to see these majestic animals lumber towards a pit of household waste. And even sadder to see a whole herd rummaging through rubbish for food. Foraging in piles of plastic packaging and carrier bags, they have been drawn to the dump due to the deterioration of their natural habitat. Their strong scavenging senses do enable the elephants to be selective in their search, but their size means they consume a vast amount, and much of that ends up being plastic. A fence erected to try and keep the elephants out was no match for them and their desperate hunger.
අවිල්ලා ඒගොල්ලන්ට කෑම ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. කලේ කෑම නැතුව තමයි මේ අපේ ඩම්පින් ප්ලේස් එකට ඒ අලි ටික එන්නේ. ඒ කෑම ටික තියෙනවා නම් ඒ අලි ටික ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න පුළුවන්.
In Sri Lanka, it is human and infrastructure development which have encroached on the elephants' natural environment, forcing them into this unsafe and most unsavory eating pattern.
The animal, because of its great foraging needs, whether it's quantitative or qualitative needs when it comes to foraging, they might be exposed to such material, which ultimately on the long term might not be good for the species. This will invariably result in the animal succumbing to death if it is untreated.
Plastics have now joined poaching as one of the greatest threats facing the world's largest land mammal, elephants, suffering the cost of human greed and growth. Debbie Edward, News at 10.
This was recent news. Honestly, this news came out sometime during the week, as of like most of all our other news.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. But thankfully, there's an Asian conservation organization that is tackling that. So there are people who are going against it, which is good. And then up next is another news. I think it is related to Farron. If it's possible, you can share your screen.
Okay. Do you see it?
Oh, no, we see the script. I think you accidentally chose the different yeah. You might chose the wrong tab.
Can you see it now? Here, let me see something. I don't know why it's doing that. Can you see now?
Yep. And then up next is basically a satellite. So basically NASA put out a satellite and it's about 800 miles above the US, and what the satellite does is that it can track the rising levels of seawater. So which is very interesting because it may be like 800 miles above, but it can track it can detect if there's rising sea levels are 1 inch higher. In this way, NASA can detect whether or not if global warming, how much effect global warming has on the world so far, and how much it is melting icebergs, how sea levels and natural disasters are gonna continue on occurring. Through this, they can predict what is coming into the future. So that's basically what is happening as of now. That's by NPR. And up next is basically a partnership by, not really a partnership. Next slide, please. And then you can click on it. So I do not know too much about it. However, I think it was, yes, the cabinet head of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, Andrew Wheeler, will visit Taiwan to premiere set on Friday. It will be the third visit. However, it is angering China. Why? Because China sees Taiwan as a country that is a part of China, like as if they own the country. However, I think they support Trump because what Trump is trying to do is trying to separate the two, which makes China very angry because it claims Taiwan as its own. As you scroll down, I think they go further more into the environment. I do not know how.
Yes.
Yes. While Trump, a Republican, is a popular figure in Taiwan, the government has moved to ally concerns. Incoming administration of President-elect Joe Biden, Democrat, will not be as supportive. Taiwanese officials have pointed out that the support for Taiwan is bipartisan in the United States. And last week's Taiwan's de facto ambassador in Washington spoke by the telephone with Anthony Blinken, a longtime confidant of Biden. So now that Biden's being elected, we do not know his impact between the two. However, hopefully, we will continue to have a good partnership between Taiwan. Other than that, we can get started on the presentation right now. Take it away, Farron.
All right. I would like to show our faces for the recording, but I just don't know where to put this thing. Okay, so we are starting with Bhutan and I think China. So yes, Teresa, take it away.
Okay, so for my two countries, I chose to do Bhutan. And so Bhutan is typically known as the land of the thunder dragon. You can see on their flag, they have a dragon. It's a very beautiful dragon. This country is the most unique country, in my opinion, because it is not only carbon neutral, it is the only carbon negative country in the world. It's a carbon sink. So it removes nearly as much as 3 times the CO2 it produces. I think that's extremely insane, considering the fact that there's not even like a carbon neutral country. You know, it's insane how much carbon they offset. What makes this country very unique is the fact that it measures its progress not through GDP, but through gross national happiness, GNH. And there's a lot of pillars in gross national happiness, and one of those pillars is sustainable development. So they put a lot of emphasis on protecting the country's very rich natural environment, its biodiversity. They try to make sure that they preserve its culture, because their culture really values their nature. It's also really interesting because their constitution states that a minimum of 60% of Bhutan will remain under forest cover forever. And they're actually doing better than that. About 70% of the country is covered in these vast woodlands. And I put a little picture. That's called Tiger's Nest Monastery. It's one of the most popular monasteries in Bhutan. It's on the top of like a little mountain/hill, and you can see like how green the country is. It's very, very rich in biodiversity. They have a lot of unique animals that aren't found anywhere else in the world, and they really make sure that they keep their national parks safe. Farron, can you move to the next slide, please?
Sure.
Actually, another fun fact about Bhutan that I didn't add in this presentation is that Bhutan is considered to be the world's last Shangri-La. And so if you're Buddhist, it's kind of like a myth. Shangri-La is supposed to be like this very beautiful, like kind of like heaven on earth. It's a mystical, harmonious valley, and that's what they call Bhutan because it's so beautiful. It's so rich in culture and diversity. They really care about keeping their country beautiful. It's also very interesting because they get most of their powers from their very fast flowing rivers. So a lot of their, almost all of their electricity comes from hydropower. And they actually end up selling this power because they have an excess of it to countries like India. The government just cares a lot about, making sure that their country is very sustainable and very like environmentally friendly. It's actually very funny because when they pledged at the Paris Climate Agreement, they were completely ignored when they said they were going to be climate neutral and climate neutral, carbon neutral and carbon negative. They were completely ignored. No one thought that that was possible. No one cared about the small, tiny country. But this is the only country that actually is doing what they promised. So the only country who's actually like really making the effort to change and be more sustainable and focus on renewable energies. And so the government is very involved. So they want to make the country's agriculture 100% organic by 2020. I'm actually could not find if they did that, but I know that was one of their goals. And they're trying to be waste free by 2030. They also are trying to like incentivize electric vehicles in their country. So I added some pictures of the cars that they use in their country. And the sad part about Bhutan is that they're actually very heavily affected by careless countries such as India and China. India and China are some of the biggest producers of carbon emissions in the world. They are very careless. They do not care about deforestation. They do not care about burning through all the resources. They don't care about their carbon emissions. And it's really sad that Bhutan, because it's sandwiched between China and India, they're affected by their neighbors. They're affected, and it's just sad to me because they're doing everything right, but they still have to pay the price for other countries that don't care. So they're actually hit with lots of rain, like lots of floods, which is very, well, actually the floods are also caused by rising temperatures. A lot of their water, it's from the Himalayan glaciers because it's in the Himalayas. So the faster the glaciers melt, the more likely there are to have a flood. So it's very, very sad that they're affected by these two countries while they're literally doing everything right and they actually care about their environment. Farron, can you move to the next slide, please?
Sure.
This used to be a country, but it's now a part of China. Tibet was independent until 1949. It was invaded and taken over by China. Before occupation, Tibet and Bhutan, they're very similar in the sense that they follow Buddhism, and Buddhism is very close to nature. So when Tibet had its own kingdom, there was no damming, there was no hunting of wildlife. Most Buddhists tend to be vegetarian. There was no industrialization, no draining of wetlands. But now there's a lot of mining, there's a lot of land exploitation, a lot of exploitation of resources, and it's just really sad what's happening to this country. Tibet actually holds the third largest store of water ice in the world, and their water actually supplies half of the world's population because they have just so much water. And if you look at a map of Tibet and its water resources, they flow into all the major like Asian rivers. So the problem with this is that because of China and because they're very selfish, they're actually damming every major river in Tibet, which will probably cut off water to other countries, but also affect the ecosystems. They're just, damming and diverting this energy for their own hydropower. There's also a lot of extreme mining taking place without regard to the local environment and areas of religious significance, similar to how we have that problem in America with, a lot of government people want to build on like sacred Native American land. The similar thing with China and Tibet, where they don't care about the religious significance. They just care about stealing all of the gold, all the chromium, bronze, silver, like all the metals. So, chromium, it's usually in cell phones. So, it's Tibet in your smartphone. So essentially there's just a lot of industrial projects going on now. And so if you had gone in Tibet in like the 1940s and beforehand, it's very clean, very like naturey. There's lots of trees. They're mostly covered in woodlands as well. But now there's completely destroyed. You know, it's being mined for uranium for China's nuclear power program. It's being mined for gold, bronze, silver, lead, zinc. The water is being moved away. It's just really sad. And all of these projects are leading to the glaciers melting at a faster rate, which is, number one, going to cause flooding and overflowing of the rivers, but it's also contributing further to global warming.
Okay.
I can go next. So what I'm doing is America and Canada. So as you know, America during the last presidency or the current presidency with Trump, we moved out the Paris Climate Agreement, but hopefully under Biden, he is planning to get back in and rejoin and create a partnership or a trustworthy partnership with all the other countries and gain he's trying to make sure that America is aiming to succeed in getting the Paris Climate Agreement goal, which is going zero carbon neutral by 2050. However, as of now, America is number 42 out of 157 countries on the Sustainable Development Goals. So although it is like above the top 50, above than like it's one of the top half, it is one of the countries that does create as much waste, not as much as China or India, however, a great deal. Unlike Bhutan, who is fully run by hydropower, most of the electricity in America still does come from oil and burning fossil fuels and coal. And in America, there are a lot of oil companies that are pushing to expand. Even under the Trump, he also plans to push fracking, which is harvesting the fossil fuels in the ground. And I think recently in the news, he was also trying to push expand fracking to buy a National Conservation Wildlife Center in Alaska. But he's trying to do it before Biden gets into his presidency. So there's a lot of things that he wants to implement before his presidency ends. But on the bright side, America does have a lot of laws such as the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act, the many Pesticides, Herbicides Act, and the Lacey Act. To give you an overview, the first two are pretty self-explanatory. It's restraining the pollution of the water and air, but it's mainly aimed to protect the people and not really the environment. Same with the Herbicides, the Pesticide Act. Under regulation, there are some herbicides and pesticides that are allowed, but just know that most of the time it's mainly to assist the people and not the environment, unlike the Endangered Species Act. Next slide, please. Was Canada, they really do love their environment, and I know that there are a lot of organizations that are pushing to protect it. However, it is a place that is very dependent on its oil industry, its GDP. So unlike Bhutan, like Teresa explained, both Canada and the US, and like most countries, do measure by how much they produce in the country, because GDP is a measure of like how rich a country is. They don't measure pollution because that will make them look more not cheaper but more poorer. So they're really most countries are really aiming for that high GDP rather than like honesty overall. Canada, it is 20th of the Sustainable Development Goals, so it is more sustainable by 20 levels of the US, and it's currently tackling 17 of the Sustainable Development Goal, which is a lot, and I think there's 26 of them in total. They are aiming to conserve their natural heritage. So overall, they are expanding for more greens in their country. However, again, the oil industry is impacting, and I don't know if it's expanding, but just know that the country overall is trying to take more sustainable actions as of now to reach the Paris Climate Agreement.
Okay.
All right, so now I will talk about Mexico. And so Mexico City is very polluted in the air. So I'm going to mostly discuss Mexico City. Both the Mexican government and the citizens of Mexico have recognized air pollution as a major environmental and social concern since the mid-1980s. They have implemented air quality management programs. So some of this includes the removal of lead from gasoline, strengthened vehicle inspections, and having a no driving day. So this is like stopping private vehicles from circulation 1 day a week. And this has caused concentrations of pollution to decrease despite having an increase in population. So here on the right, there's a graph and you can see the population is increasing, vehicles is increasing, energy consumption is, kind of staying at the same place, and ozone, it's going lower. And however, Mexico City's levels for particulate matter and ozone exceed the World Health Organization standards. So they're trying, but they're still not where they should be. Okay, so now we will talk about Brazil. Brazil, as we all know, has the Amazon rainforest, which is the heart of biodiversity in the whole entire world. And there is a lot of deforestation in Brazil, in the Brazilian Amazon. And there are terrible health impacts as a result of this deforestation. Fires burn throughout the year in the Amazon to clear land for agriculture, cattle grazing, or land speculation. So these fires produce air pollution that negatively impact the people who live in those areas, and such as the indigenous people who live in the Amazon. The environmental destruction affects their health and their livelihoods. There's illegal clear cutting and subsequent fires occur in or near indigenous territories. There's this short video we're going to watch about the Amazon rainforest. So that was pretty much the video.
Okay. Great job, everyone. So now I will be talking about Iran. So climate change in the Middle East is very intensive, especially in Iran. So Tehran is one of the most populated cities in the world. The population can reach to about 12.5 million people per day, like with people coming in from nearby cities just commuting to work. And the air quality is very bad there. You can actually see the pollution in the cloudy air. It feels dry. Like when I go there to visit my family, I actually get like these, I don't know, like maybe it's just because it's a different country and I'm not used to the air there and everything, the water. But when I go there, I get bumps on my underarms and my belly, like these red bumps every time. I had like a very bad rash on my skin. So the the quality of air there is not good. People have been wearing masks there as well, just to protect themselves, as like respiratory diseases are also increasing as well. So Tehran, as we can see in this map here, it's surrounded by the Alborz Mountains. So it's at a high altitude, and these mountains trap the polluted air in the area. It's called temperature inversion. It usually happens in the winter months, but it prevents the pollutants from being diluted. So the cold air is trapped beneath warm air, creating a pocket of stagnated air close to the Earth's surface, preventing common pollutants such as carbon dioxide and sulfur from being broken down. So I have visited this mountain several times, and the air is visibly dusty and it does become foggy as you go up, as with every mountain, but it is pretty dusty there. And so there was a dust storm in Kazakhstan province, which is around this area here. I'm not sure exactly where Kazakhstan is, but in 2018, Iran made headlines for the worst storm yet. 15 plus 15 plus cities were shut down, and many elementary schools were shut down in the area. And the strong winds from the dust storm carried the toxic dust and contaminated the water, which aggravated health issues and increased medical costs for treatments. As a result of the large dust storm, people of Ahvaz were forced to stay indoors without power or running water at times, and 806 people were taken to the emergency wards, of whom 39 were hospitalized and 9 were taken into intensive care. And this isn't the first dust storm to occur in the Khuzestan province. But in January, the people of Ahvaz gathered in front of the city council to bring awareness of the effects of pollution and what it is, the effects that it's having on them, and the loss of domestic products and increased health risks and health costs. So other major causes of air pollution in Iran come from refineries, power plants, industries, household sources, and gas terminals. So some implementations that Iran has put is the Clean Air Act. So this law introduces heavier punishments, such as higher fines for any industries or individuals that do not adhere to the pollution limits. It tries to improve fuel quality, and it tries to improve public transportation. Also, the trucks in Iran run on diesel engine, and they're temporarily banned from the streets. And the technology of the cars there are pretty old, it's pretty outdated. But another thing I remember them doing is the odd even rule. So this is basically a car rationing system where number plates ending in even numbers will be allowed to run on even numbered days and vice versa. So you can't really, they will like tow your car if you park on the wrong day. So yeah. And Iranian leaders have said that they view climate change as a serious threat, but the nation has not ratified the Paris Agreement, which is a global framework to avoid dangerous levels of climate change by striving to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. And then, oops, one sec. So some renewables that Iran has, they're almost entirely powered by fossil fuels, they only get around 0.1% of their power from non-hydro renewables such as wind and solar. There are significant opportunities for development of Iranian wind power and geothermal energy, and this also has the potential to go across the Middle East region. While there has been some policies in recent years to encourage renewable development, progress has been slow. And then here are some of the effects of pollution in Iran. So first, the economic decline of Iran. There is changes in the region's climate and dryness and depleting water sources. Also, sanctions have affected Iran's transition to a cleaner energy source. And as I said before, the increased respiratory diseases. And actually, this is a photo of people in Ahvaz people. And it is said that the ethnic Arab population in this area is subject to discrimination by the government, hence the neglect of the environmental situation. So things are very hard there. They don't have access to clean water at times. And yeah, this photo here is just a photo of the first seasonal rains that are mixed with air pollutants. So the air does get pretty dry. And also, I just want to talk about the sanctions a little bit. They have definitely affected Iran's oil distributing, and this has definitely, of course, made it harder for them to have a cleaner energy system. But as tensions with the US escalate, Iran has made it clear that any climate action that it undertakes will depend on cooperation and assistance from the international community. So it's really important that our leaders work together, because it's not just one country that, we all have to work together to fight this. But as we can see, the geography of each country really affects the way climate change is affecting people there. Like Iran is already a dry place, so it's getting even worse because of this. So yeah. And then here's a video from NASA. Oops.
Nitrogen dioxide is a gas emitted during the combustion of fossil fuels. It's released from the tailpipe and the smokestacks of power plants. Together, these emissions affect the quality of air we breathe. Since 2004, an instrument aboard NASA's Aura satellite has measured levels of nitrogen dioxide in Earth's atmosphere. In 2014, we released satellite images that show how environmental regulations have led to reductions in nitrogen dioxide over major US cities. Now we created global maps that allow us to see how levels have changed around the world over the last decade. In Western Europe, despite the recent vehicle emission scandal, nitrogen dioxide levels have decreased by as much as 50% due to tighter environmental controls. In China, we see an increase in levels over most of the country due to a rise in coal use for power generation, but decreases for some cities like Beijing, where a growing middle class is now demanding cleaner air. In the Middle East, we see decreases in nitrogen dioxide levels over Syria due to the country's civil war and displacement of its population. Meanwhile, levels have gone up in neighboring countries where millions of Syrians have taken refuge. In the US, the only increases are in regions with intensive oil and natural gas extraction, including fracking. In North Dakota and Texas, we see increases of 30% in some areas. By monitoring levels of nitrogen dioxide from space, we can see and quantify the effects of things like energy usage, environmental policy, and even civil unrest on air quality across the globe.
Yes. So I really just believe that we are all like one people.
Hello, I'm Sunny Williams. I'm up here on the International Space Station.
Oh, sorry, I thought somebody was talking. Okay. Okay, so now for an open conversation. So What can a country do to make the world a more sustainable place? And what can a country do to influence the people to take action regarding climate change? Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
I think each country, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Maria.
Okay, thank you. I think each country should use more the renewable energies because I see in my country in Greece, we have a lot of sun, we have very windy islands, and we don't use any of our renewable energy, and we just use oils for electricity.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I think maybe it just starts with picking the right leaders, but of course there's corruption and times we can't do that. You know, like in Brazil, I know the president, or just in Iran, like for example, they didn't care about the people who are suffering, and the Afghans people, they didn't care, like, and it's going to affect Iran as a whole one day. So yeah, we really have to. We are all one people, you know, like anything that what is happening in California is going to affect us soon, and then it will affect the whole world, you know. So yeah, I think it just starts with electing the right.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize, and something that's been pointed out to me, at least in my environmental biology course this semester, is that really a lot of the power is in the hands of the consumer, but we don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as you said, it's also depending on the leaders, but having leaders that encourage the consumer to take action against really big corporate companies contributing to the kind of pollution and climate change that we're seeing. For example, like organic farming, right? The reason that organic food might be pricier is because it doesn't necessarily support the commodity, because in America we want it cheap and we want it in bulk. And so it's easier for farmers to use pesticides, to use fertilizers with like phosphorus in it and stuff, because they're able to create a bigger kind of crop outcome. But if everyone just all of a sudden started buying organics and the market started leaning towards organics, the organic farms would have more support, they'd have more funds, they'd be able to maybe expand on what they're already doing. And then the whole population can shift toward that being in demand versus supporting corporations that end up polluting our beautiful earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. Like it really is in the consumer's hands. So I think also we have to start with informing and educating people, so that they can know the effects of it and what they can do. Because some people they don't have the time to learn about it, or it's just kind of out of convenience to buy the fruits that isn't organic, you know, because it's expensive. But if we put our money and research towards those things, it can definitely expand. You're right.
And I'd love to see like maybe it implemented in institutions first, right? Like versus like encouraging like every single household to immediately go organic. If we start with like elementary schools and their school lunches being organic and teaching kids from a young age that this is what we want. And then as they grow older, like that's going to be kind of, I guess, kind of at the forefront of their thoughts is, okay, growing up, we learned about climate change, we learned about protecting the environment, and we learned about buying organic food or being sustainable or having compost and stuff like that, you know? I think it's also a generational thing too, which is really important. So handing it down.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think honestly, this is like sometimes sanctions can really help. I think like having environmental sanctions would make a country, or like having sanctions on company, like not, you don't even have to have just sanctions. You can also have like benefits to companies. Like if you have to have like an incentive for people to be good. And that's like the sad thing about like human behavior is you can't just expect someone to do something out of their own free will. Like most people won't do it. You have to like either like have like a benefit or something that is like a deterrent. So I think that honestly what we'd have to do is give sanctions on countries that don't follow the rules when it comes to sustainability, or give them incentives to become more sustainable, such as like I know for like big corporations they're thinking possibly of giving them like a little bit of tax cuts if they are sustainable, which is something like they wouldn't do it on their own accord. You know, they only care about profit. So if you give them the incentive, maybe they'll do that. Like conversely, if you give them a sanction, they don't want to lose profit, so they're going to have to change. And I think that like it would be good to do it on countries. I know that, you know, the Paris Climate Accord is basically just a bunch of countries just making pledges. There's
Yeah.
no harm if they don't meet their pledge. There's nothing. It's just them making empty promises.
The
Like
guideline.
that's a big controversy with like Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. One of his reasons for pulling out was the fact that the Paris Climate Agreement is just a big show. And in a way, he is right, because when Bhutan went to the climate summit and was like, okay, I pledge to be like carbon neutral or reduce my carbon emissions, no one cared until they actually saw what it could do. And that is the only country that actually sticks to his word and actually does what it's promised. And in fact, they actually go beyond what they promised. So I think what would be important is to give them incentives or deterrents to like incentives to be more sustainable, to be more environmentally friendly, or you give them sanctions for not being environmentally friendly. Like the best way to do that honestly would be to trade, like for the trade industry. Like I know right now we have trade sanctions on Iran. You could change those sanctions to be, because Iran is not environmentally friendly, they don't care about their carbon emissions. That's why we put sanctions on the country versus a country that is starting to make progress toward that. Like Mexico, I understand that Mexico is actually trying to make progress. Canada is trying to make progress. Countries like India, China, Iran, like they don't care about what they're doing. The government does not care. The government does not pass legislation that actually does that much. In America, like it's complicated because like we like take one step forward, but then we take a step backward at the same time. So it's like kind of difficult. But like I know like in certain countries in Europe, they have a lot of geothermal energy. Like Iran has like that potential, they just don't want to use it. But
But
then there's certain countries in like I think it might be Iceland that has a lot of geothermal energy. So now they're trying to like make their electrical energy come from geothermal energy. I think it's Iceland. I'm not too sure on that. It's one
but
European country that has like a lot of hot springs.
I think you misunderstood me. Maybe you're right about this. Maybe part of the sanctions is because of their lack of environmental implementations, but the sanctions were from like, you know, them pulling out of the nuclear agreement.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean like they're for environmental. I'm saying that we should change the sanctions from like the whole Iran nuclear agreement instead of making it like you know how some certain countries already have sanctions on them imposed by the US, but instead of just posting them for like political reasons, it should be more like environmentally focused.
And
So
I agree with
yeah.
how you say they should have consequences because, like, for example, at my job, the to-go people were not charging people for bags. So at the end of the year, we got a fine from Montgomery County for not charging people for plastic bags. So then now everyone makes sure to put the bag price. So
Like,
it definitely made a change for us.
and that's the thing, like I know California, I think in like the early 2000s, I remember like California was one of the first states to like not ban plastic bags, but they would charge the price for it as a deterrent kind of. I remember that. Like that was one of the first like states in the US to do that, I'm pretty sure. And like that's a big reason why I guess like you know, some people are starting to switch to more like reusable bags, and like a lot more stores are trying to sell like bags that you can just like, okay, if you bring your own bag, we'll just bag it in whatever you bring it in.
Yeah.
And I know that like some like health food stores, like I know that buying in bulk, it can be like unhealthy in the sense that like you're buying like a lot of like junk food, but now a lot of like organic stores like Whole Foods, like in my neighborhood, like the Tacoma Park Co-op, they have like organic food that you can buy in bulk, like pasta, nuts, wheat, flour, like stuff like that. So you can just take what you need and go. They have like honey, like what else can you buy in bulk? Like cereal, rice. Like they're trying to like encourage people to not use like the packaging, and so like just bring your own, like you bring your own packaging and then they weigh it and that's how they charge you. And so you're able to buy things cheaper in bulk, but you're also not like, you know, it's healthy and you're not like using all that packaging.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what some of you guys said. I definitely think it's important to educate, you know, the children and the future generations, because when they see something, when they're being taught something at school, if it's a fun activity where it's hands-on, they might really like it and maybe do it and want to do it in the future. Having environmental units in school is very important. And also putting, bins in the school that are labeled properly. And also, yeah, just having the school try to practice that, and incentives is very important. And then I think somebody mentioned tax cuts for the companies that have more sustainable packaging. I think that's a great idea. Honestly, it's sad that we have to provide incentives, and obviously people aren't going to want to do it by themselves. But it was very interesting to learn that right now somebody said that if one person decides to or if a group of people decide to buy more organic food, then there's going to be more demand, and then companies are going to have to adjust to that. And then I think that's great. I really didn't think about it like that. A lot of people say one person doesn't change anything, but I really think it does, because you can inspire others to change. So I think that was a very good point.
And that is what we're doing right now. So just teaching each other is really important. And I think doing it starting in elementary school is also a very good idea. So I hope that we can go through with the elementary school project as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that, honestly.
Yeah.
Going off of what I'm not sure if it was two people or just one person, at least Paulina, going off of what you said about education, I don't know if anyone else has gone to MCPS schools. I don't know if other people are coming from out of state or just haven't lived here, but I know that for MCPS, for as long as I've been going to school, or at least like in the past, they don't require you to take environmental classes or learn about the environment. And I'm sure it's definitely the same way with other school systems around the country, but it's not mandatory. So you only take them if you want to. So that's basically only the people who are really interested in this kind of stuff, like with everyone in this club. And so I think that like implementing, something where you absolutely have to learn about the environment, because it's only going to change if everyone learns about it and everyone has the opportunity to. So they definitely have to make it mandatory, because if there's only people who are taking it just because they want to or just because they want to learn about it, it's not enough. So yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely right, Mary Kate.
I was in an MCPS school, and I took AP environmental science in high school, and that was the only class where I really learned anything about the environment, and I decided to be in it. So I definitely think that there should be some type of mandatory class, maybe one class in middle school, one class in high school, and then just implement it in the units for elementary school. I think that would definitely change something. Having field trips too. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. That's why I like how, did you guys see the climate change clock?
New York.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Let me find this.
Oh wait, is it like is like 2050?
I think
is it
in New York?
Counts down when let's see. So this is in Manhattan, New York. So it says that 7 years, 102 days. That is when the most important number in our world, up everywhere. I guess it's in other places, but it's for, I think by this time, the CO2 levels will basically reach a level that we cannot fix it.
Oh my gosh,
at that point.
Terrible.
So I think some people were mad. They were like, "Oh, I don't want to see that," but like, no, you have to see it.
Yeah.
This is important. This is reality. Like,
yeah. But one thing I was gonna say too is, so I feel like a lot of this, like, also, right, it's like the school system, because that basically impacts almost everyone in the US, right? So one thing that I actually was talking to my math teacher about this, and I thought of how I could apply this to the environment. But I was telling him, yeah, like sometimes when we are just solving problems with no rhyme or reason, it's really hard for me to feel like I want to pay attention, because I love applying what I'm learning to the real world. So I think it would be really cool if they could implement the climate change or the environment into like every different subject at some point, so students can show how what they're doing in school can eventually make an impact, and how what they're learning can make an impact on the environment or change the world, really. And I think that that could inspire a lot of kids growing up if we like put that into our school system.
Yeah. By actually seeing the numbers, I think it makes
Yeah.
a difference also.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I agree with that
Might.
too.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that was all I was gonna say. Go ahead.
This might be a little off topic, but I know that in terms of MC, I took a bio class, Bio 111, I believe. I don't know if anybody else has taken it. I took it last year in spring semester, and it was really interesting. It was about like the Bay Area and our ecology, just around this region. So I would recommend that class for anyone who's interested in taking something that's a little bit more specific to this area. So,
That's really cool.
Bio 10 what?
111, it's National Science of the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay.
We actually were supposed to go on some field trips last year, but because of COVID, we couldn't. But yeah, it's supposed to be really interesting. So
Okay, that's cool. MC has a class for everything.
Yeah, I feel like that's so true.
They have motorcycle classes. They have everything. I really like that.
Really?
I know MC typically offers ecology, but they didn't offer it this semester, and they're not offering it next semester because of COVID. I don't know.
I
when-
noticed a lot of differences in like because there were a lot of classes that like I wanted to sign up for, or that I was going to look at for next semester, and I think that they were either like removed until, because everything got condensed, or like some classes got condensed. It's like a whole weird thing.
Like what classes like particularly? Like I know ecology is not going to be offered.
I wanted to do like an honors course in Intro to American Government, but they took away a lot of the like honors options.
Really? I felt like there were a lot.
Yeah, there's still like art, like the classes that I wanted to take, for some reason, I guess it's just my luck. It's like there were 2 classes I wanted to take that when I checked in the fall had honors options, and then when I went to go sign up, like they were like all gone.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
Do you know what your major is?
Huh?
Do you know what your major is?
So right now I'm just general studies, like social sciences, humanities, and administration. But I want to go to law school one day, so that's kind of what I'm shooting for.
Very good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, maybe you can be an environmental lawyer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So before we leave, we just want to talk about the denim drive a little bit. It's coming up pretty soon. Well, we've already started it. So, Teresa, would you like to explain that?
Yeah, are you showing the screen?
Am
Okay,
I?
yeah. Okay, I see it now. So yeah, we launched our denim drive on National Recycling Day, which was November 15th. Essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to have people donate denim products, just jeans, jean jackets, anything that you don't really want anymore. And so that will be turned into housing insulation for nonprofits such as like Habitats for Humanities. And so it's just a good way to encourage, sustainable communities. You're recycling your old clothes that you don't want anymore. It's helping reduce waste from the textile industry. And yeah, so as long as they're like 90% cotton or higher, you can just ship them for free. You get a free shipping label from Zappos for Good. And yeah, and you can get a chance to win a $25 gift card. And so because we didn't go for the budget panel for the gift card, anybody is eligible to win, even if they're not from MC. So you can tell like your family members, your friends who don't go to MC, they can win the $25 gift card. It's good to donate more. The more times you donate, the more your name will be entered into the raffle. And so yeah, it's from November 15th to December 6th. And we're really hoping to get some turnout.
Awesome.
And yeah, you can sign up on this form right here, and you have to just send us a picture of the denim that you're shipping. You can just send us a picture of us, and then we can verify it that way and put your name down.
And we got approved to get hours for this, right?
Marielle?
Oh, she's not here.
Oh,
I think actually I don't know.
we might possibly be approved to get hours
I
from
think we
this.
did get approved
I
on our Give Pulse page.
Let me go to
Did it
Montgomery
like set
College.
like a kind of like predetermined?
Yeah.
I believe we have one for that now. Oops. Not logged in.
Yeah, I think it's 1 hour that you get if you donate,
Oh, that's so cool.
right? I think so.
Yeah,
I
I
was
think it's 1 hour per gene.
1 hour per gene.
I think so.
I can email Nick Shushka. I'm just not too sure. Let me text Marielle right now and see if she responds.
I don't see our. How do I go to our group?
Um,
Oh my gosh, I
You-
feel like it's like
Oh, I think it's here.
oh, there it is.
Oh, there's the denim drive. So this is an upcoming events. So yeah, you can create a Give Pulse account, and then I think we sent out an email for a link to our subgroup. I can send it out again, but yeah. So here is where all the links are for this. I'll put that in the Discord. So yeah. Thank you all for coming today.
thank you so much.